Hello, New Paradigm Astrology friends. Namaste. So I'm going to continue talking about Mars in the houses. And I have my second video about Mars, which I call the Mars series. I I took Mars from the first house through the sixth house, and then we didn't have time, so I'm creating this other video now so that we take Mars from the seventh house throughout the 12th house. So Mars in the seventh house has a very interesting type of expression because the energy of Mars will be projected on your most intimate partners. So you will expect to leave the Martian type of energy through somebody else. So you're going to expect that your partner brings into the relationship that Martian type of energy. So someone with a lot of physical stamina, someone with a lot of expression, someone who is either a fighter or a go-getter. You don't really know what kind of partner you will attract until you know what kind of aspects will this Mars in the seventh house will receive from other planets, and also what kind of sign this Mars will be in. So let's think about the quality, the psychological quality about someone who has the seventh Mars in the seventh house is someone who expects the partner to be proactive, to be someone who is going to take a lot of space, a lot of ego trip, right? Because the person with Mars in the seventh house is projecting its Mars in somebody else. So either you're going to find someone who is really active, who is really determined to get things done, or it's going to be someone who makes a lot of noise, who starts things and then leave it in the middle of the accomplishment. Because, as I said, Mars doesn't have a lot of patience. Unless it's in Capricorn or in Taurus, then you have someone with a bit more of patience. And then Mars in Pisces too. But other than that, all the other Mars positions are a bit challenging. And then if you have it on the seventh house, you will find a partner who is definitely not very patient with himself, because usually that restlessness is what starts the lack of patience. Okay, so that said, just be very careful not to be associated or to marry someone who is going to make your life seem like a chaotic, routine. So, this is a type of a position that I would just like really explore and see how that is acting out. Okay, because Mars in the seventh house is really the acting out in someone else's chart, someone that you are associated with. So let's say that you have Mars in Scorpio in the seventh house. What kind of partner do you think you're going to attract? Someone with a necessity for a big necessity, big need for control. Someone that might just make your life miserable from the jealousy perspective, from the control freak perspective. So this is something that you really must pay close attention if you're like starting a relationship and you are the more fragile type. You don't want to associate yourself with someone with Mars with Scorpio I mean, if you have Mars in Scorpio in your seventh house, you already know what kind of men you're going to attract, or what kind of women you're going to attract. So you must pay extra attention to the type of energy, to, because even if they start mellow, you know, they all of a sudden they may just show up as someone very controlling and even violent at times. Remember, Mars is a sign of violence and Scorpio is a sign of intensity. So let's say that you have a very well matured kind of Scorpio, then you're going to be with someone who has a lot of power, who has gone through a lot of crisis in his life, and it's now projecting to out in the world its best expression. But mostly, if you are the one who has Mars in your seventh house, you are going to be attracting people with such a strong personality. Doesn't matter in which sign it is, but in Scorpio, then you can just, you know, figure out how that will act out in somebody else's life. And if you're doing a chart for your client, you know, you have to be very careful how you're going to communicate if you see Mars in their seventh house. Let's say you have Mars in Aquarius in the seventh house. So this is a person who is going to look for a partner who is outspoken, who is out there making friends, you know, like, you know, you sit on a bench and then you just reach out for the person that it's sitting close to you, and then all of a sudden you start a conversation, and then you engage into a friendship that lasts a long time. So this person with Mars in the seventh house will enjoy being with a man that has that quality, because Mars in Aquarius is a sign that the person is trying to establish a connection with other people. And if it's in the seventh house, you will look for a partner who is in the same drive, is in the same mode, is looking for the same type of what's the word, stimulus, you know. Mars is about stimulus. So, and if you have it on the seventh house, it's even more a sign that it's going to be a stimulus coming from the other person, coming from your close associations. It could be too that you are gathering forces with someone. I'm still in Mars in Aquarius in the seventh house. It could be that you are forming a partnership with someone to create a non-profit organization, or maybe you're going to, you know, in the downside of it, you might get involved with someone who is a rebel, you know, who is like not really expressing the higher expression of Mars in Aquarius. You know, it could be Mars in Aquarius could be a rebel, someone who fights, someone who is you know, doing things out of proportion, because Mars is about doing things out of proportion sometimes. Let's say that you have Mars in Capricorn on the seventh house. So you're going to attract a type of person who is very oriented to accomplish big things in life. You know, you're going to look for that partner who is going to have your back when you most need it. You're going to go after that partner who is a go-getter in the long haul, you know, not someone who is going to get something here and then let it go the other day, the next day. When you have Mars in Capricorn, you yourself, you're looking for that kind of stability. And Mars in Capricorn in the seventh house could be that you sacrifice some of your most instinctive desires and moves in order to establish a relationship with someone who will bring that kind of impulsive behavior into a more tamed context, because it's Capricorn, it's an earth sign, it's a very contained sign. So you might live a relationship, or your client or whoever you're studying the chart uh, with Mars in the seventh house is someone who is going to make a sacrifice, someone who really is not, that person is not really looking for a partnership to gain some kind of short-term pleasure. Even though Mars can be short-term pleasure, when it's in Capricorn, it just, you know, embodies a whole different type of psychological blueprint, right? So let's look at Mars in Gemini in the seventh house. And I'm taking my time in the seventh house because I think it's a house that everyone needs to dig deeper so that you know what to expect from the other person and from your close associations. So if you have Mars in Gemini in the seventh house, you are probably going to be attracting people who are very talkative, who can be volatile in their desires. They may make plans and then they shift plans, or they change plans, or they give up altogether, you know, and they tell you things last minute. They don't give you the whole information. So if you are making a partnership, let's say to open up a business with someone who has you yourself in your chart have Mars in Gemini, or the person, your client, is looking for your advice on if he should make a partnership with someone, and the other person uh, with whom he's going to establish the partnership has Mars in Gemini in their seventh house. So you're going to say, are you ready to embark in a very unstable type of energy? I mean, it's going to be very creative because Gemini is super creative, right? But then again, you know, unless that person has some other aspects that can stabilize their energy, someone with Mars in Gemini is going to be someone who is going to give you a portion of their information, and then they're going to give a lot of other pieces of information, and you don't really know which one you should follow, because usually Gemini, he just throws things at you, information, and then he lets you choose because there are so many options. So this is something interesting about someone. If you yourself have a Mars in the seventh house in Gemini, you're going to attract someone with an unstable kind of attitude. Someone who is very talkative. They can be very seductive, you know, because you know especially if you are someone who is attracted to the air type of men, you know, those men that really know how to talk, really know how to present an idea, then you might expect to be falling in love with someone who is going to be an ever-changing personality, and you know, someone who is going to have a bunch of ideas, and you know, just either you adjust. But if you're like a Capricorn or Taurus or Cancer, and if you have Mars in the seventh house, then you're going to have problems adjusting to the type of man that you end up attracting, because the seventh house at the end of the day is the type of personality that and the behavior personality too. Not only the personality in terms of like overall, but the behavior that which can be verified by action, because Mars is action, right? So let's say you have Mars in Cancer in the seventh house, which I think it's a good position for Mars in the sign, because it's going to bring someone who is going to protect you, who's going to fight for you, who is going to fight for your love, who is going to fight for your protection, for the home, you know, environment, who is going to want to spend a lot of time, togetherness time. You know, seventh house is about complementary, like someone who is going to come and complement you. uh and yeah, Mars in Cancer in the seventh house is, you're gonna find a husband or a close associate who is going to protect you no matter what. No matter what is Mars, and protection is Cancer. So you put the two together, and then you know. Let's say that you are doing a partnership with someone with Mars, and you yourself having Mars in Cancer, and you're looking for a partner for business. Then you want someone who is going to bring that feminine aspect to the business. Someone, either a woman, you're going to do business with a woman, someone who is protective, someone who thinks about how you're going to make that the business function in a way of that you can make it cozy. You know, like can you imagine like a company that can really give a lot of benefits to its employees? That's someone that would work in a human resources or something like this, that really cares about how people are going to feel. And if you're doing business then with someone who has Mars in Cancer, you already know they expect that from you. And if you're not coming in with that kind of energy, you know, they're going to complain. You know, like, let's say you are going out with a man who has Mars in the seventh house. So he expects you in Cancer. So he expects you to be protective. He expects you to be very loyal. He expects you to be very family oriented as well. Let's look at Mars in Aries in the seventh house. Mars in Aries in the seventh house, you are going to relate. Let's say that we're talking at your chart, about your chart. So it's going to be a movement of you wanting to relate to someone who is like super strong, you know, someone who is like almost like a warrior, someone who works out, who has a lot of muscles, you know, muscles on the arms. And, you know, that's what you're looking for. You're attracted by that kind of muscle-like type of partner. Okay. And then you kind of like hold the space for the person to be like super ego trip, you know, like super narcissistic. Like you can attract someone who is like a super narcissistic person, and violent with words, or even someone who is reckless, right? Mars in Aries in the seventh house, you associate with yourself with people that are reckless sometimes. Oh, they are so much on their ego, so much on their guts, so much in their grit, that they just roll over everybody else. And so yeah, think about it. You know, I would love to be in a relationship with someone with Mars in Aries, as long as they have, because I have Venus in Aries. So if someone comes with Mars in Aries, it's going to activate my Venus in Aries. So it's going to allow me to be that fierce lover that I, you know, the more strong female that I end up expressing no matter what, you know. So a man that comes with Mars in Aries would be a perfect match for me in terms of, you know, the expressive attitude. But then again, if it's too rash, if it's too tough, You know, you have to look at the complexity of the chart. You know, the complexity of the charts tells us that, you know, I'm Pisces, I'm sun and moon in Pisces in the ninth house. If the guy is like too tough, even if he has Mars on top of my Venus, it's not going to work. So I keep saying that, and I'm going to say once more, I look at the chart as a very complex blueprint that will allow you to sort out how that psychological um, configuration is expressing itself through you, through your mindset, through your actions, especially if it's Mars. You know, Mars is going to talk about how you're going to act, how you're going to react. But you have to look at the whole chart in order for you to have a clear vision of how that is going to affect you and how that is going to affect the others. Because there's something very interesting about this axis, the first house and the seventh house, that I want you to think about, is that my energy, my first house is always something that it's very manageable by my own willpower and my own desires. You know, if I decide to do some work on that level of the first house, of how I show myself to the world. But let's say the seventh house, you end up projecting yourself into a relationship with the same determination that you have to control yourself. You know, and sometimes you cannot control the seventh house, because the seventh house is actually what you're looking for, as you know, in the other person, or in many other persons, you know. And then if you come with the same intensity of the first house, you know, the first house is ruled by Mars, the seventh house is ruled by Venus. So Venus really asks that you allow space for the other person to manifest themselves. So this first and seventh house is like when the seventh house is opening, you know, becoming a vessel for the other person to express themselves, you know. And you learn from that, because that's going to challenge the first house, the way you react out to the world. So let me see. Seventh house Taurus. You know, someone who has a Mars in the seventh house is someone who is going to look for a partner who brings stability to the relationship. Someone who is able to be a provider, someone who has their feet well grounded on the floor, who is willing to do the work to ground the relationship. You don't want, like, it's a completely different perspective from someone who has Mars in Gemini in the seventh house, because Mars in Gemini in the seventh house, the person will attract someone with a more unstable kind of energy. But someone with Mars in Taurus in the seventh house, you know, is someone who is really looking for a stable partner. Let's say that the rest of the chart is a mess. Like the person has Uranus with squaring the moon, or Uranus conjunct the moon, Uranus in square to the sun, in opposition to the sun, Pluto in square to the sun, in opposition to the sun. You know, all those very unstable, psychologically unstable aspects on the chart. If you have Mars in Taurus in the seventh house, you are going to look for that partner who is going to ground you, you know, like really ground you. Because, you know, even though I spoke about Mars in Capricorn in the seventh house being that stable partner, it's going to be a stable partner, but it's not too much involved into grounding you. He's going to be grounded himself. But since we are looking into Mars being in a sign of Venus. You know, Venus is very receptive. So when you have Mars in this Venus signs, which is Taurus in the seventh house, in a house that is ruled by Venus, you know, so the sign Taurus is ruled by Venus. The seventh house is ruled by Venus too, but Venus more of a Libra type of Venus, but it doesn't matter. It's Taurus, and then it's ruled by Venus. It's in the seventh house, and if you have Mars there, you know, it's gonna tell you that you're looking for someone who is going to come with that Venus tinted, you know, painted with that kind of stable behavior, so that the person can ground you. So you're really looking for someone to ground you. That's what it's going to attract you. And if you are doing if you are looking into this position for a business partnership, it shows that you're looking for someone with financial skills that can teach you and reflect your need to learn how to do the accounting, the planning, you know, the financial control. And let's say that you are looking into a prospective partner for a business, and then the person has her or his Mars in this in Taurus in the seventh house. So they too are going to look for that kind of energy, grounding energy in a partner, right? And if you're like dating someone for the first time and you're the more kind of like a freedom type of person, you're not really willing to commit too fast, and the other person has Mars in Taurus in the seventh house, the other person will expect you to commit ASAP. Okay, so Mars in Leo in the seventh house. Mars in Leo in the seventh house, you are going to attract someone who is like out to shine. Someone who is going to make a scene out of small little, you know, occasional you know, misunderstandings, because Mars is always gives some range of possibilities for misunderstanding. um, and then it's in Leo, so that means that someone you attract, if you are the one with Mars in the seventh house in Leo, you're gonna attract someone who is a the alpha macho, you know. If it's a man, it's the alpha macho, like I am here and I am just the best. I wonder if Melania Trump has that kind of Mars in the seventh house. I will look into her chart and then I'll let you know. But that kind of man, that kind of husband, that it's like me, myself, and I, that's someone who has Mars in Leo in the seventh house. So now let's say that you yourself have Mars in Pisces in the seventh house. So the kind of person you end up attracting, I'm just looking at Mars by itself. If you have other planets in that house together with Mars, then you have to add the other energies to the complexity of your interpretation. So this is very important. You know, look at the complexity. We are all complex beings. Our psychological, you know, configuration, that's not a good word for it, but I cannot find a better word right now. But I mean, the whole, you know, picture of your psychological outpour into the world is of the complexity, is related to your own complexity. No one single aspect in your chart is by itself everything that you will express. You know, some of course will just pop up as the most expressive configuration that you have in your chart, but mostly, you know, you have to look at the whole thing. And so if you have Mars in Pisces in the seventh house, you will end up attracting someone who might be weaker than you. Or you might attract someone who is going to be more a laid back person, you know, someone who can bring you a lot of spiritual activities. Activities is related to Mars. Pisces is about the connection with the other world, or not with the other world as a Scorpio, but with the higher world, you know, with a higher universal connection to the whole, you know, as because Pisces comes from the previous incarnation that was you know, Aquarius, you know. So the evolution aspect of Aquarius is Pisces, when all that, you know, turmoil from all the other signs finds the stillness. And so if you have Mars in the seventh house and you are a strong personality with planets in the 10th house, planets in the first house, planets in the second house, you make a lot of money, you're like, you're all established in the world. Maybe if you have Mars in the seventh house, your husband is going to stay at home taking care of the kids, doing sacred space in the house. When you come back home, your whole house is like full of little fairy tales around the house. But if you are looking for someone with a very decisive kind of energy, when you have Mars in the seventh house, you might not find that person so easily. You're going to attract the type that will go into escapism, you know, like will try to go into like to another world that sounds and feels better than the world of ordinary life, you know, because Pisces doesn't like ordinary experiences. So if you're having, if your whole chart is like Saturn conjunct Sun, or Saturn conjunct your Moon and the Sun together, or Saturn conjunct your Mercury, and then ta-da, you have Mars in Pisces in the seventh house. So you're going to choose to live your magic through that other person, you know, through that person. You might even fight with that person, because Mars has an aspect of fighting. So you might fight with your seventh house partner if you are the type that, you know, you're more stubborn, or you're more down to earth, or you might just be completely okay if the other person plays fairy tale and you're taking care of real business. You see how important it is if you look at the whole chart. And then let's say that you are a lunatic yourself, you know, like you have Neptune in square to your Mercury, to your Moon, maybe in conjunction to your Sun. Well, if you have Neptune in conjunction to your Sun, you would not have it at the same time square to Venus or to Mercury, because the Sun never goes away, never moves away 28 degrees from Mercury, and I guess 38 degrees for Venus. So yeah, it wouldn't be a square, but it would be like, you know, like can you see two people like really getting high, getting lost, you know, if someone, if you are someone who has a very lunatic type of chart, and then you find someone with Mars in the seventh house, oh my God, Mars in the seventh house in Pisces. I hope I'm not making too much of a confusion here. Trying to make it easier for you. So I forgot to talk about Mars in Virgo. Mars in Virgo in the seventh house will means that you're going to find someone with a very critical mind, that it's going to be someone who is always fighting to be perfect, to be asking you to be perfect too. Like if you have Mars you in Virgo, in the seventh house, the person with whom you associate yourself with, it's going to be someone who is going to um, request that you act close to perfection. You know, I keep thinking, you know, I'm Pisces, my moon is in Pisces too. And if I had a partner that expected me to be like super perfect, I would suffer a lot, because I myself, I have Pluto in Virgo, so I do expect myself to be perfect. But if I had on top of that Mars in Virgo in the seventh house, I would just like be completely suffocated by the amount of expectation that a partner with Mars in Virgo in the seventh house will bring to your life, right? It can be someone who is going to expect you to be doing everything in a timely manner, you know, that someone who on a date scene is going to talk to you, like it's going to tell you, well, I'll be at your house at 9 o'clock, and then you have to be like perfectly on time, not to disappoint this person who has Mars in the seventh house. If you have Mars in the seventh house, you're going to end up attracting that kind of person. And then let's say that you want to look into kind of a partnership that you need, since you have Mars in Virgo in the seventh house. So this person will be someone with a characteristic of being very picky, very much wanting you to do things down to perfection, you know. So this can bring a lot of turmoil to a relationship, because Mars is very how can I say, likely to have outbursts, you know. The planet of outbursts is Mars. So if you have it on the seventh house, it could be that under any circumstance you will see that the person with whom you associate will have that kind of, you know, possibility. It will be someone who every now and then will burst. Uh, if it's in Pisces, will burst of sensitivity. If it's in Capricorn, of crankiness, you know, someone will be like super cranky because something wasn't done, you know, in a super directed, you know, oriented, planned kind of way of doing things. And then you just adjust, you know, you just put the what the energy of the planet is, and then you give them a dressing from the psychological outlook that will come with each sign. Okay, and then on top of that you will see which are the aspects that will come and trigger that Mars. So it's as complex as that. And then again, looking at the whole chart in order for you to figure out how you are going to deal with that Mars in the seventh house. So I will stop this video here. I think we've done Mars in Aries, Taurus, Gemini, Cancer, Leo, Virgo, Libra. Oh, if you have Libra, Mars in Libra in the seventh house, this person is going to be an interesting partner, because he will want to do partnership. And it's, if you have Mars in Libra, even though it's like depleted of its ego trip, because Mars is in its opposite sign of Libra, it's going to be someone with this very charming energy who is going to want to compromise, who will want to lead in a very peaceful and gracious way, you know, like Libras are. I'm very attracted to Libras. You know, I think it's one of my favorite signs. You know, I learn a lot with them. I enjoy their company. Maybe because I have Venus Venus in Aries. I'm very connected to any planets in Libra. I just adore. It's a fact. But then if you have Mars in Libra in the seventh house, lucky you, because you're going to attract the kind of partners that are willing to be in peace with you, you know, who are elegant enough to allow you to shine without having to attack you, because Libra is the sign of the balance. And so you don't want to fight, you want to be in harmony. So okay, so I was I was missing talking about Mars in Libra. Now I did it. I started with Mars. Oh, I forgot about Mars in Sagittarius. Mars in Sagittarius in the 11th house is a type of Mars that will bring to your life a lot of excitement, adventures. It's going to be someone who will invite you to manifest the daring part of you. You know, it's going to be someone who will say what they mean and mean what they say, and then they might even be too blunt, you know, because Mars is blunt. Sagittarius really, you know, it's almost like a you know, I don't know what Sagittarius is, but they have all these jokes, you know, they have all those jokes. Sometimes when you have Mars in Sagittarius, the person will be like one joke after another. So you might be prepared. You have to be prepared to someone. If you yourself have Mars in the seventh house in Sagittarius, you will attract a man with a lot of energy. He's probably someone who will want to hike mountains and, you know, do all the outdoors that Sagittarius likes to do. And then you're going to attract people with a sports like, because not only Mars but Sagittarius, they're both very physically, you know, physical sports oriented. So that type of energy is a very active energy that you're looking for in a partner. Even if you don't know, you're going to keep attracting the same type of man that, you know, maybe they do kite surfing, maybe they do mountain bike, maybe they do, you know, school football or something, or maybe they are rowers, you know, they row, they like, but they have that expression and they like to teach you how you should do. Mars is always, it's bossy, it's telling people how to do things. And so does Sagittarius. Sagittarius is ruled by Jupiter, the almighty Jupiter. So you're having the warrior Mars in Sagittarius, which is ruled by Jupiter, is like the almighty, I can do it all. And it's probably going to bring a lot of excitement to your life. And with that, I'm going to pause. And then, you know, another chapter will be Mars in the 8th house, which is pretty serious too. Till then, be brilliant.